Hello neighbors, it's Brad here at eTrailer, and today we're taking a look at installing the SumoSprings Rebel Custom Helper Springs on a 2013 Fleetwood Bounder Classic. Adding these to your front suspension is going to add a lot of added benefits, not just supporting weight, but also it's going to allow for sway to be reduced, and it's going to get a little bit more planted of a feel as you drive, meaning you're going to get more steering feedback, and it's going to just have a little bit quicker steering response, and overall it's going to be a little bit more comfortable because this is going to absorb a lot of that shock. Your factory jounce bumpers are pretty short, so for that to actually make contact, it takes quite a bit of pretty heavy hits on the road for that to even do anything, where these engage pretty quickly. And that's the great part too, is this two-piece design allows for this to really open up, so your suspension is still able to move quite a bit without limiting the travel, but you get all the added benefit of that cushioning as well as the weight support. Now these are rated at a 3,000 pound capacity, which is going to not necessarily add capacity or weight carrying capacity to your vehicle, but it's going to be able to absorb up to 3,000 pounds. And you still have all your factory suspension doing its job, but this is just going to help supplement that. And this is made out of a microcellular expansion foam, which is going to really absorb a lot, and it actually gets progressive. So as it absorbs, once it kind of compresses down, it's going to fight against it even more. So the more weight you put on it, the harder it's going to work to bring your suspension back to normal. Now, another great part about these is they're maintenance free. There's pretty easy installation. There's no drilling required. It's just bolt in. And once they're installed, you don't have to worry about them. They're going to hold up to the road elements. They're not going to have any issues with road grime, any oils or anything like that eating away at them. And they can hold up to some pretty serious temperatures, anything that you throw at your RV. In fact, -25 up to 200 degrees Fahrenheit. So really, once they're installed, you don't have to worry about them. The airbags are great and they do a good job of supporting a ride, but really you have airlines and potential for things to go wrong just long term. So for a longevity sake, these are great. You don't have to worry about them. You're going to get a great ride every single time you hop in your RV, and it's a quick, easy upgrade to do. Now, as far as the installation goes, you are going to have to raise up your front suspension to allow for that room to not only get rid of your old jounce bumper, but to get the new ones in. And really, it's as simple as taking your old jounce bumper off and using a lot of that same hardware to bolt up your top bracket. You bolt everything else together, and then you just have a series of carriage bolts that go around your leaf spring. Once you tighten them down, you're good to go. Beginner installation, you're going to want to raise your front jacks. That's going to allow the suspension to hang freely, to give us a little bit more room to not only get our jounce bumper out, but get our new ones installed. Now we need to remove our factory jounce bumper, and that's going to have a bolt that's run through the center, so you're going to need an extension. And there's also a nut that's going to be on the top, so having a wrench handy to hold that in place is going to allow us to get this loose. So I have a 13mm socket on that bolt head, and with my wrench on the back side, we'll go ahead and get our jounce bumper removed. Now we're going to grab our upper bracket, and we're going to grab our serrated flange nuts and just pass those through the holes here. Now we are going to be reusing the hardware that was in our jounce bumper to get this mounted up on our bracket. So the flat portion here, you'll see there's a tapered edge. Tapered edge is going to point towards the outside, so have your flat side pretty well in line with the frame. And we'll just pass our hardware from our jounce bumper back up, and then we're going to get this tightened down. Now there are some little tabs here that allow this to kind of hold up on the frame, so that should kind of keep this in place as we tighten this down. Now we're going to grab the top portion of our springs, and we'll have these longer elongated holes that are going to line up with those previously passed through serrated flange nuts. So what I'm going to do is get these aligned, and I'm going to kind of hand tighten these in place, and then we can go ahead. I'm going to be using just a 9/16 wrench. We'll go ahead and get these tightened down. So now we're going to grab our bottom bracket, and the orientation is pretty important. There's going to be a roll that's on the back side of the leaf spring. This stepped portion is going to go there, so you'll see the notch here on the flat portion. This is going to face towards the front of the vehicle, and we have two slotted holes here. We're going to be using the one that's further away from the tire. So if your tire's here, choose this one. So we'll just line this up real quick, and then we're going to just hand tighten this in place, because what we're going to do is once we're under there, we're going to set this in place, but we need to align this. Now have a paint marker or a pencil or something along those lines handy, because once we kind of get it aligned, we're going to mark this, and that way we can take this back off, tighten it down exactly where we need it to be. So we'll kind of get this in place. So we have that bent portion here. That's going to go towards the roll where our shock mount is. So with this kind of in place, we should get this to drop down, so you'll have that notched out portion sitting on that top stack. So at this point, I can go ahead and we're going to move this to where it's going to align exactly where we want it, to where it can fit in there. And I think that looks pretty good. So I'll go ahead with my paint marker, and I'm just going to mark an outside edge of this, and that'll get us pretty close. We'll take it out, and we'll tighten that nut down. So with that tightened down, we can get this put back up, and we'll grab our carriage bolts. So our carriage bolts, we're going to have longer ones and shorter ones. We're going to take the shorter ones, and those are going to go in the back towards the shock mount. So go ahead, you can pass those down. You may have to kind of slightly move your bracket. And then our longer ones are going to go up front here. Now make sure that your bracket is properly seated, obviously. Now grab your bottom bracket, and we're going to slide these over the carriage bolts. Now where the channel part is actually going to go against the leaf spring, so make sure you have it in the proper orientation. And these front ones are going to get really tight here as far as getting the socket up to tighten it down. So these might have to go in at a little bit of an angle, as you can kind of see with just putting our bracket in place. And we'll take our nuts that are supplied in the kit. We get these hand started on here, and then we'll go ahead and also get a bracket on the back started the same way. Now it can get tricky with the socket, obviously, to get in here, as it's pretty tight against our front axle. And this actually has a steering stabilizer on the back, so I wasn't able to use the socket at all. So a ratcheting 9/16, just getting these nice and hand tightened down should be just enough. And really, that's going to kind of do it for the installation of this side. So all that's left to do is repeat on the other. And that was a look at installation of the SumoSprings Rebel front helper springs on a 2013 Fleetwood Bounder Classic.